It's so good to have you with us today. It's it's a blessing to be here. It's great to just to be awake, to be alive. I know it's kind of sounds maybe a little cheesy, but I'll just say personally, I've gotten some news about some friends and some folks today where people are having some health problems and some other things. So I'm grateful for my own health. I'm grateful for all of you. I think there's never a bad time to just acknowledge that we are so fortunate. We have many blessings and many challenges in life, of course. But for certain, this day wasn't guaranteed to any of us. I didn't have a contract when I went to sleep last night that I would wake up today and that I would get to do this, even though I wanted to. And I imagine that even though you can't all answer me at this moment, I would say that if I asked you the question, did any of you have a contract when you went to sleep last night, that you'd get to wake up and have this day be yours, that you probably would. You didn't get a contract like that. And even though I was a lawyer for almost 20 years, I didn't get one either. So it is something to be grateful for. And I want to acknowledge that. I am also so happy to be here. To be able to facilitate just the introduction piece of this, really, and give you access to this amazing thought leader. And I'm going to share a little bit more about her in just a second. But for those of you that aren't familiar with WORKWELL, we are an organization that's very much committed to creating healthier places to work, a healthier ecology of work, if you will, and happier places as well. Again, I know it sounds a little cheesy, but there's work doesn't have to be the antithesis of fun or joy or happiness. I think we get ourselves kind of tied up in knots around what work-life balance means, and a part of what we do at WORKWELL and part of bringing the kind of experience that you're about to have to you is really to be able to debunk some of those myths, including that work-life balance myth, because I would even call it BS, frankly. These are both areas our lives are, we want to perform and be at our best in our personal lives. We want to be at our best in our work and in all of our professional pursuits. And those two things are not antithetical. They're not in opposition. They're not in conflict, and they certainly don't have to be balanced, whatever that even means, but embraced and harmonized, if anything. So with that, WORKWELL is really happy to sponsor this webinar series that happens each month. And today we have Niki Avraam, and she is absolutely amazing. She and I have a lot in common. We vibed pretty quickly in the sense that even though she lives across the pond from the U.S. perspective, from North America, she's on the other side of the pond in Great Britain. But we're both attorneys. They call attorneys something different there. She can get into that if she wants to, but she's absolutely an amazing individual. You're gonna see that, you're gonna hear that, you're gonna experience that in just a second. Let me say a little bit more about her. She is a compelling speaker. She leads the charge in workforce evolution. Absolutely an amazing concept. Using her extensive background in employment law, an area I also practice in, Niki empowers organizations and individuals to exceed their potential and stay ahead in the future of work. Niki demonstrates how instilling a culture of ownership and adaptability leads us to unprecedented opportunities for success. With that, I want to just pass the mic, virtually speaking, and hand over the stage to you, Niki. Thank you so much for being here with us today.
Oh, thank you, Adam, for that wonderful introduction. Well, it's 9 p.m. here in London tonight, so I honestly can't think of a better way to end the day. I'm so thrilled to be here with the WORKWELL community, so thank you so much for having me. And I have to say that I am honestly and entirely obsessed with today's topic. This is really about transforming organizations from the inside out. And that is through adopting an ownership culture. And I don't see it as a workplace trend. This is more a framework that achieves so much. It improves engagement, unleashes innovation, drives retention, and most importantly, it can deliver unprecedented success. And that's for both individuals and organizations. So Adam touched on this on a personal note. this really sits at the intersection of all of my worlds. So employment law, I practiced employment law for a number of years. Business leadership, I founded my own firm and I've gone on to found other businesses. And the years advising organizations on cultural transformation. And better yet, this is entirely actionable. So this should give you real practical tools to almost immediately implement in your daily practices. And that's from how you design job roles to how you create environments where people can truly excel. So throughout our time together today, I really want you to participate by asking me questions, by dropping it into the comments, into the chat. Feel free to ask anything, state whatever you feel strongly, or feel free to mention anything that you want to throughout the chat. And I will, at some points, ask you to come on a journey with me and perhaps reflect on your experiences. I really want us to engage in that way. Don't worry, it's nothing too taxing, I promise. I'm so very excited about today's session. So let's dive right in. So first up, I have a question for you. What is the most underutilized resource in any organization right now, today? What is the one game-changing asset that we're all overlooking? As leaders, founders, entrepreneurs, what do you really see as being overlooked? Feel free to drop your comments into the chat. What do you think? I'm going to have a look over here. Anything? Any volunteers? Cutting edge technology? Perhaps data? Maybe you're thinking your people. Anyone want to hazard a guess or make a comment? Just checking here the chat. People is mentioned. Human potential. 10 out of 10. I have to agree. There are so many elements here. But yeah, I've come to the conclusion that the most underutilized resource in any organization right now is that really powerful element, and that is the untapped potential within our people. And I'm not talking just skills or productivity, although those are, of course, crucial. I'm referring to something deeper: their creativity, people's lived experiences, their wisdom, their drive to make a difference, those unique perspectives and hidden talents that sometimes don't even make it into a job description or a performance review. See, here's what happens when we don't tap into people's potential, and it might be their hidden talents or experiences. Imagine just for a moment an artist being handed a spreadsheet, right? Or a natural innovator being told just follow the process. Or someone with deep customer insights, and we never ask them about their perspective. How do you think we should handle customer processes? What do you think happens in that scenario? Again, drop your comments in. I'd love to hear from you. What do you think happens when we don't tap into people's potential? I'm just referring over here again to the chat. Well, at first, I think people give it a go. They try. They might even share their ideas in team meetings or suggest improvements. But when those contributions are consistently overlooked or dismissed, or what they're doing doesn't align with their strengths and their talents, something fundamental shifts. You know, energy starts to fade, enthusiasm dims, And that drive to make a difference, it slowly dissipates. And that for me is the real tragedy. You know, when we can't bring our full selves to work, when we have to leave our unique perspectives at the door, we don't just become less productive, we just become less present. And I have seen that pattern repeatedly in my work with organizations, and it saddens me. You know, people, in my experience, don't disengage because they're lazy or just naturally born unmotivated. They disengage because they are sitting on this wealth of wisdom and potential and just watching it go to waste. It's like having a superpower and being told to keep it hidden. And it's not just individuals who miss out, it's organizations too. And I've lived this untapped potential scenario from both sides. So I just want to dial back for a moment to my early days as a young lawyer. So I first went to my first firm in London. My parents were Greek immigrants. They are Greek immigrants who came to the UK in the 1960s. And they had various different businesses, from dry cleaners, a fish and chip shop, a hairdressing shop. So I grew up living and breathing this entrepreneurialism. I had an entrepreneurial mindset, and I brought that to a very traditional, rigid industry, and that's law. And, you know, my firm could have done what lots of firms would have. They could have locked me in a room, drafting contracts, wheeling me out years later for client meetings. But instead, I was incredibly fortunate because they recognized my entrepreneurial spirit, and they recognized it as an asset instead of a liability. And we worked together, we collaborated to shape my role around my strengths. So I didn't just practice law. I built entire employment departments, and I brought that client-first mindset that I'd learned from my parents' businesses. And I have to say, the result of that was transformative for everyone, for my team, for myself, for the organization, because I was given ownership. And I was so passionate about what I was doing. I was so deeply invested in the firm's success, not because I had any equity at that time, but what I did have was agency. And, you know, that's a level of engagement that it can't really be manufactured. It emerges naturally when people contribute from their full range of talents. I mean, the unfortunate flip side was that when I started to lead people, and I started to do that quite early on in my career, I adopted this top-down leadership style. I think I was emulating what I had seen from my predecessors. And I made that classic mistake of really assuming that all my passions and my talents and strengths could kind of trickle down to the rest of my team. But I learned very quickly that that only served to stifle people. When I realized that, I underwent a huge transformation as a leader. And I became an enabler, an empowerer of people's career goals and their growth. And that's when the team really thrived, because they were empowered to bring their whole selves to work. So when I then went on to found my first business, a law firm, we didn't just recruit lawyers. We recruited people who were prepared to own their impact and their purpose, and we helped them to do that. I hope you're not relaxing too much, because I'm about to ask you another question. When was the last time you asked someone, or you were asked this question? What are you good at that we're not using? Or put slightly differently, what's one skill you have that we are not using? When was the last time? I'm just looking up here at the chat. Ownership is a brilliant answer to the question. Enabler, empowered, great definition of a leader. I agree. A custodian of people's career journey. So folks, can you let me know? I want to hear what's going on in organizations out there. When was the last time that this question was asked? What are you good at that we're not using? Not really a question I've heard. Never been asked that skill question. I mean, I have to say that that's been my experience as well. It's a question that's rarely asked in organizations. But I promise you that this is a game changer. It's a game-changing question. Because if we don't ask it, we may never find out the true talents and skills of the people sitting right under our nose. And the organization, therefore, may never get the benefit of those superpowers, that gold dust. That question's transformative. So I want to illustrate that. And this is where I ask you to come on a journey with me, because we're going to go into two stories with two talented professionals, two different organizations, two vastly different outcomes. And as I share these stories with you, I encourage you to think about your organizations and your own teams, your colleagues. I guarantee you that you'll recognize elements of both of these stories. So, without further ado, let me introduce you to Maya. Here she is. We can just about see the back of her. So Maya, growing up, she grew up with her parents who had an alteration shop. And they would say, we're not just fixing clothes, we're fixing how people feel. So she learned from very early on that every single transaction was about human connection. And Maya carried that wisdom into her retail career. She did well. She rose from seasonal worker to regional manager. And she did that by understanding the human element in every transaction. But after a restructuring, she was made redundant and she found herself joining a Fortune 500 company, an insurance company. So this was a place of cubicles, fluorescent lights, rigid processes. And on her first day as operations manager, Maya's heart sank a little. She was wondering, is this place dynamic enough for me? And is this where I have to suppress my customer first instincts to fit in? But then something rather unexpected happened. So during her first quarterly review, her manager, Sarah, asked her a question that changed everything. And it wasn't a question about her KPIs. She asked her, Maya, how would you handle our claims process differently, given your retail experience? What would you do? Now, in that one moment, Maya's entire lens changed and she started to see things differently. She started to see what others had missed. Claims weren't just paperwork. There were families with flooded homes, business owners in crises, people needing help. And she was drawing from her retail experience. And not only that, her parents' philosophy. And that enabled her to transform the entire approach. We're not just processing claims, we're helping people rebuild. So the result of that, claims process faster, customer satisfaction soars, and zero staff turnover. So what's the secret to Maya's success? Why did this work? You see, Maya was given permission to bring her full self to work. She felt invested in the organization's success because she owned her impact. Her success wasn't about some new technology. It was about one leader asking the right question and one employee being empowered to answer authentically. And that had this ripple effect across the entire department because they in turn felt empowered to bring themselves, their strengths, their talents to the fore. But for every Maya unleashing her potential and being empowered to do that, there's a Jennifer who you're about to meet, whose story should really be a wake-up call for all of us in today's session. So let's meet her. Jennifer. So Jennifer works at Cornerstone Capital, an old bank, but it has a pretty healthy technology budget, and there are endless talks about digital transformation. And Jennifer's approach to customer service is entirely shaped in her early years, her formative years in her father's auto repair shop. So while other mechanics are simply handed over their bills, her father builds trust through clear communication. People don't just want their car fixed, he would say. They want to understand why it broke and prevent it from happening next time. So that philosophy propelled Jennifer to become a chief customer officer, known for transforming client experiences. So when Cornerstone recruited her to bring innovation to traditional banking, it seemed perfect. But then reality hits because Jennifer's suggestions for improving client onboarding are greeted with, well, that's not how banking works. And her proven strategies for preventing client attrition buried in committee reviews. Her ideas for modernizing the client portal, our clients prefer traditional methods. So what do we think happens? What happens next? I mean, the passionate innovator in Jennifer just starts to disappear. She stops speaking up in meetings. Her energy fades. Her high-performing team, sensing that futility, they begin to leave. And meanwhile, agile competitors capture market value share as Cornerstone loses revenue. And here's the real tragedy. You know, Jennifer's solutions, they weren't like radical innovations. They were proven strategies based on simple principles that she'd learned over the course of her career. Make complex things simple, keep customers informed, build trust. So the very innovation that Cornerstone desperately needed was sitting in their weekly meetings. They just never asked that one simple question. Jennifer, how would you improve this if you could? Given your knowledge and your lived experience, your wisdom, what would you do? And you know, they didn't listen to the suggestions that she'd made. So 2 stories, 2 professionals, 1 critical difference. See, Maya's leader recognized that diverse experience, all of that experience that Maya had was an asset, not a liability. So she was given permission to own her impact. Jennifer's organization, on the other hand, was so focused on how things are done here that they missed out on the very innovation that they claimed to want. So effectively, they buried her potential. So I'll tell you the uncomfortable truth. And that is that Maya's situation is not necessarily the norm. It's more Jennifer's story. So for every Maya who gets to transform their organization, there are dozens of Jennifers watching their potential go to waste, updating their resumes and taking their innovation, their innovative mindsets to their competitors. Now imagine if we flip that script. Imagine for a moment if Maya was stifled, Jennifer empowered. How different would those stories be? How different would the outcomes be? And how different would the organizations be? I wonder how many of you have experienced, either yourselves or vicariously, a Maya or a Jennifer story, maybe even a bit of both. And let me know. So the cost of this buried potential that we saw in Jennifer's story, it's not just the innovation or the missed opportunity. This is creating a crisis in our workplace. And it's more serious than a lot of us realize, and that's disengagement. I don't think it is any overstatement or any exaggeration to say that disengagement is the silent pandemic of the workplace. Because without that freedom to bring our true selves to work, we become like organizational zombies. We're mechanically going through the motions, replicating what we think we should be doing, and following hierarchical leadership blindly. We're becoming the working dead in that scenario. Now, William Kahn of Boston University diagnosed this problem of disengagement 3 decades ago, in the 1990s, but yet it is still rampant. If we look at, for a moment, the definition of employee engagement, it is the involvement and enthusiasm of employees in both their work and workplace. Highly engaged teams have been shown to outperform the rest consistently. Disengaged teams are less productive, they're less innovative, they're more likely to call in sick or quit. And the worst part is that they negatively affect overall business performance. So engagement is critical to the success of any organization. So I want to bring up this rather shocking study. It's a worldwide Gallup study, and it shows that 62% of employees are not engaged at work. So that means they're putting minimum effort, going through the motions, psychologically disconnected from their employer. And we have there just a QR code on the side where you can go there with your camera and access the full PDF of that study. So the even more alarming statistic for me is the notable percentage, that's 15% of highly disengaged. That means actively working against the organization's interests. So in that case, disengagement morphs into sabotage. That means undermining projects, spreading negativity, destroying team morale. Why? Because somewhere along the line, someone told them perhaps that their unique perspectives weren't valued. Someone failed to ask that critical question about their hidden talents. And if we never ask, we never know. And worse, when these people try and share their insights, like Jennifer, we shut them down. Remember Maya's retail experience? What if no one had asked about her unique perspective on customer care, customer processes, to translate that to claims processes, she would have become another statistic, lost to active disengagement. And we've all seen it. I think we've all seen it as consumers. Think about the sleepy barista or this is more the case in the UK, right? The moody sales assistant. And with colleagues, the team member who doesn't do much, but just enough to avoid being called out. I wonder if you can think of any other examples. So the question then becomes, can we really afford a community of the working dead? So what's the solution? What is the solution? Do we think maybe more ping pong tables in the break room? Casual Fridays, free snacks, bean bags? Now, don't get me wrong, these are nice perks, but they are band-aids on a much deeper wound. And they're not addressing the real issue. Perks are great. People like perks. But what they really want is more purpose and more ownership. I have an actual physical cost of disengagement. It's $8.9 trillion annually. And that's from the Gallup study. $8.9 trillion annually in lost productivity as a result of disengagement. It's 1.9 trillion in the US. Staggering figure. But however staggering it is, I don't even think that's the real tragedy. It's the lost innovation, the problems never solved, the transformation never even attempted. Every day, thousands of Jennifers walking into our organizations carrying brilliant ideas and hidden talents that we simply never discover. And of course, it's not an HR issue. This is systemic, and it's threatening the competitive edge of our organizations. So in a world where innovation, more than ever, is our lifeblood, can we really afford a workforce that is operating at a fraction of its potential? Can we afford it? But with all that said, folks, I'm gonna dull the tone up a bit. I'm gonna give you some good news. And the good news is that it doesn't have to be this way. I'm gonna dial back to that question that we looked at earlier on. That question, what are you good at that we are not using? That question that could have transformed Jennifer's bank. Or what's the one hidden talent, one skill your organization is not using? How do we ensure that these crucial questions are being asked consistently from everybody? We build these practices into the very fabric of our organizations. So the way that we transform the working dead back into passionate, engaged contributors is through fostering an ownership culture. When we have control over what we do, how we work, it elicits joy. And joy is great, right? So there are abundance of studies to show that. But joy can be a bit transient. So it's crucial that it goes beyond that. It leads to this deep-seated fulfillment. And that's more likely to weather any storm, right? When we can't assert our identity and when we don't have that control, it bleeds into every aspect of our lives. Powerlessness is debilitating. And that's not just for individuals, it's for organizations too. So this is a remarkable study, and it was conducted by PwC. It's actually the findings of a global survey. And again, we have the QR code right there for you to take a look at that study in more detail. So that study showed that many employees, in fact, nearly half, would sacrifice 20% raise in salary for more autonomy. 20% raise in salary sacrificed for more autonomy. So that is the power of ownership. That's the power of allowing people to bring their full selves to work. And that research consistently demonstrates that autonomy leads to higher productivity and better team performance. So when individuals feel that they have a personal stake in the success and the well-being of their organizations, they are invested in their work, just like I was in my younger years as a lawyer. And that's when an organization starts to live and breathe their values. That's when the care or service that they're providing becomes a lived reality. So what we're really saying here is that ownership is not a luxury. It's not a nice to have. It's a productivity powerhouse. It's a necessity. So here are the 3 pillars of the ownership culture. Job crafting, preferred discomfort, and agility over rigidity, becoming adaptable. So before I delve into those 3 pillars, I just want to say the overriding theme is that these create a framework, and those turn disengaged employees into organizational owners, not in terms of equity, but something far more powerful: ownership of purpose, of growth, of impact. And these are the 3 pillars that can make that a reality. All of the pillars involve collaborative approaches that create workplaces where everyone is valued, seen, and heard. Think back to Maya and Jennifer, 2 talented professionals, one thrived, one withered. The difference wasn't their potential. The difference was actually their organization embracing these essential pillars. So the first pillar is job crafting. Now I'm going to suggest something that might sound controversial, and that is that the era of the fixed job title is dead. Forcing individuals to mold themselves to fit predefined positions, that serves to stifle creativity and growth. So job crafting is aligning personal goals, strengths, talents with company objectives. So we allow for career development, role evolution to better match individual strengths and talents with organizational goals. You know, Jennifer at the bank, she was confined to a rigid job description. Maya, on the other hand, she was able to reshape her role in the insurance company, bring her retail experience into that business to transform the claims process, and everyone benefited. And job crafting isn't just about changing tasks, it's understanding the wider context of the role. So the reframing of the job role. Imagine if Jennifer's managers had helped her see how her role could impact the bank's broader mission of financial empowerment. You know, when people understand that wider significance, how their work touches client lives, influences customer success, shapes industry innovation even, that is powerful. It transforms a job into a mission. And that's almost intoxicating. So let's have a look at what job crafting looks like in practice. So these are just some examples. We haven't got the time today to delve further into them, but look at some of the examples of how we can affect job crafting. Employees reshaping their tasks to really align with their strengths and talents. And as we've seen before, individuals understanding how their unique perspectives, bringing their, what I call their wisdom toolbox to work, can really impact an organization's success and transform entire processes. And for every pillar, for the purposes of today, I want to suggest one quick win that you can perhaps implement almost immediately in your organizations with your teams. I wish we had time for more, but here is the one quick win for the job crafting pillar. How about starting the next career progression meeting, next one-to-one, by asking two questions. What's one hidden talent or skill you have that we are not utilizing? And question number two, how do you see your role contributing to our larger mission? Give it a go and let me know how it goes. Your one quick win for job crafting. Pillar two of the ownership culture is preferred discomfort. Preferred discomfort involves intentionally choosing challenging experiences that push boundaries and broaden our horizons. Think about Maya's journey. When she suggested transforming the claims process, she was stepping into uncomfortable territory. It wasn't the done thing, but she chose that discomfort because she saw the potential for growth and she was empowered to do that. So I would like to briefly ask you all to do an exercise with me. Trust me on this one. And feel free to close your eyes while we do it. It's nothing woo, I promise. So have a think. When was the last time you colored outside of the lines or worked or did something outside of your comfort zone? Might have been this morning or last week. Do you have to reach back into your childhood to find that moment? I want you to really immerse yourself in that memory. How did it feel? Just have a think. So I suspect there's a common thread running through all of our experiences. Like at first it starts with that initial discomfort, right? That knot in our stomach telling us that we are venturing into very unfamiliar territory. But then, as we push forward, we're pushing through, something rather magical happens. There's a rush of energy, adrenaline. So we feel alive and alert and we are present in the moment. And as we push through to the other side, there's an incredible sense of accomplishment. And I think that's what we call pride. We've done something that we weren't sure we could do, and we've surprised ourselves, maybe even others. I'd love to hear about your experiences of that. Because that's what I call, that feeling, that moment is what I call preferred discomfort. And working in our preferred discomfort is scary, it's uncomfortable, but it's also invigorating and it leads to growth. That's why it's preferred. It's what Maya embraced and what Jennifer never got the chance to experience. And the key to empowering people to work in their preferred discomfort is to have a safe environment, a have your back versus watch your back culture. And that's exactly what Maya's manager did. And working in our preferred discomfort, empowering people to work in that way, is what leads to a culture of collective adaptability, growth, the culture of innovation, by supporting work in our preferred discomfort. So our quick win for the preferred discomfort pillar is to launch monthly test and learn projects. So that's perhaps where team members can experiment safely with new approaches and new ideas. Have a think of how you can perhaps implement that. Let me know how it goes. The third pillar is agility over rigidity. So Maya succeeded because her organization was willing to be agile, to let that claims process be reimagined by someone with retail experience. And Jennifer's bank in turn failed because it was rigid, it was stuck in this is how we've always done it. And we can really see how the future belongs to those who can unlearn and relearn. And in some cases, that means moving away from that linear approach to any type of development, professional development, and adopting a more multifaceted, dynamic approach. This isn't about abandoning everything we know. It's about being ready to pivot, to adapt, to grow as the world is changing, because the world is changing fast. And we can use those transferable skills, that lived wisdom that we all have. But for that, we need an adaptive mindset that embraces the discomfort that comes with constant change. So agility here really means encouraging people to take on new roles, if that's appropriate, and challenges. And sometimes those might seem outside their self-perception even. The benefit of that, almost the side benefit, is that in turn improves communication across diverse backgrounds. That agility facilitates that. So quick win for the agility versus rigidity pillar. Doesn't have to be anything radical. Skills exchange program where team members teach each other their unique expertise, maybe for 1 hour each week, maybe for half hour. Give it a go. And I've referred there to Airbnb and their mentor program because they have flipped traditional mentoring. And that's by pairing junior and senior staff in mutual learning experiences, relationships. It's a recognition that younger employees, or perhaps less experienced, maybe they're digital natives, can teach their invaluable skills, their tech skills, to more experienced staff members, maybe veteran employees sharing their business wisdom and their industry knowledge. And that program is designed to be intentionally reciprocal. And that fosters a culture of continuous learning and knowledge exchange across generations. And that requires a degree of agility. So by embracing these 3 pillars, job crafting, preferred discomfort, agility over rigidity, we're really creating workplaces where everyone feels valued, seen, and heard. They thrive on a diversity of thought and experience, and that is what enriches organizations. That's how our teams work to their full potential. And it's how we, in turn, achieve organizational success. It's when people own their impact. So I'm going to wrap up here. And as we wrap everything up, I want to just briefly return to where we began. That question about the most underutilized resource in any organization. Many of you saw what it was. Not technology, not data, not even people, but the untapped potential within our people. So when you next connect with your team, I want you to look at each face differently. Behind everyone is either a Maya or a Jennifer waiting to emerge. The question is, which one will your leadership or leadership of your colleague cultivate? Every day we have hidden talents walk out the door, unused, unacknowledged, innovation never surfaced, problems never unsolved. So we can use this practical framework for change. The 3 pillars of the ownership culture. Adam, I just want to leave everyone with one final challenge. Ask this question. If you do nothing else, ask this question. What are you good at that we are not using? I'll leave that challenge with you.
Brilliant. My words, but also one of the attendees. That's what they said. Brilliant, and I agree wholeheartedly. Love where you took us today, Niki, and you had me so early on in talking about where people show up and aren't always present, and what nets out of that is never good for them personally. It's never good for the team environment. It certainly doesn't contribute anything to the overall organization and its goals. And you led us through solutions today, things that I think will not just, we can have a think, to use your term, and have a think about it, but also where it is that we can apply this wisdom and be able to make changes, because ultimately that's what has to happen. So to find out more, as we do wrap up now, and we're going to give people an opportunity to take a break and take care of themselves before the top of the hour and what might be going on in their world. If you'd love to find out more information about Niki and her work in the world, and where it is that she might even be able to come in and lead a workshop or a keynote for your organization, for your team, simply email us, team@workwelllabs.com, team@workwelllabs.com. As I said in the chat, maybe you picked this up, we will be emailing you, everybody who attended, a resource guide, which will include QR codes to the research that Niki provided today. So if you didn't happen to screenshot it, no worries. We're going to give you a collection of slides and data and access to that research. So no worries there. And tune in for this webinar series that we will continue to bring to you just such quality thought leadership, such as what we heard from Niki today. And so we'll have another one next month. But for right now, I will just say, we appreciate your time and all of your energy. And Niki, we so appreciate all that you shared with us today. And I will just say, ciao for now, everybody, and have a beautiful rest of your day, your evening, or wherever it is that we find you. I know, Niki, it's evening for you. So thank you again.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Bye, everyone.